I don't want to wreck your mic. So this would be a good experience for you because right now it's time to hunt char, and even just one set would probably be sufficient enough for my family.
The value of the fishery to First Nation communities is so multifaceted, and it's so deep, and it's so intrinsic to our identity as First Nation people, and that's something that if you're not First Nation, you probably don't understand, and you might never be able to understand that.
First Nations enjoy an inherent right in self-governance, and one of those rights defined under the Constitution is the right to fish.
We are facing crisis in British Columbia with respect to fisheries.
Yeah, we got skunk. Well, your experience is set net now, but no fresh fish.
Last year, it was just heartbreaking. In Kamloops, two of my friends, they literally cried because they got no fish.
We're not just advocating for the well-being of the salmon and our Indigenous people, it's a well-being of the greater public, and it's a well-being of the environment and how it's connected to the environment.
The fisheries legislation is one of the oldest pieces of legislation in Canada, and it's built on those very principles that First Nations did not exist as humans.
We continuously stress to government that you cannot come up with one answer for all 203 First Nations.
If they continue to manage the fisheries the way they're being managed currently, they won't have any fisheries to manage in 10 or 20 years.
It's hard for us to get the government to understand these things.
So I'm Rebecca Reed. I'm the Regional Director General for Pacific Region DFO. So I've got responsibility for all the operations and activities in the Pacific region.
It's impossible for her to travel around BC and visit every one of those 203 First Nations every year.
The laws require that we engage with First Nations because they have a right to fish, food, social, and ceremonial purposes, and that right has a priority over any other use aside from conservation.
When we call people together to meet to talk about the different stocks, there's a lot of differences of opinion by the people that come to the meetings.
And you have to look at it not only from an economic perspective, you have to look at it from a societal perspective, you have to look at it from a food security perspective. So there's many different elements to an Aboriginal position.
But there's others out there who also have a strong interest in the fishery. The recreational sector, in British Columbia is very large. The commercial sector who has, historically a strong reliance on the fisheries. We have a different perspective. We have a different worldview. We view things much differently than a Western perspective. Hishuk Ishsawak, everything is one, everything is connected.
When we talk about traditional